I'm sorry, Wayne. You're just not good enough for me. Dolores's voice was soft, almost apologetic, but every word slammed into my chest like a hammer. I stared at her, the engagement ring still clutched between my fingers, catching the faint light from the restaurant's chandelier. Around us, the world kept spinning, laughter, clinking glasses, the faint sound of a love song drifting through the air. But in my head, everything had gone silent. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? Dolores looked away, uncomfortable, her hands fidgeting with the napkin in her lap. She didn't even bother to soften the blow. She stood up quickly, leaving me sitting there like a fool. I watched her walk away, the ruby red of her dress flashing with every step, her heels clicking coldly against the marble floor. Maybe if she had just left it at that, I could have eventually moved on. Maybe if she hadn't smiled so sweetly at Brandon when she passed him at the bar, I wouldn't have felt my heart rip apart a second time. Brandon, my so-called best friend, was already smirking into his drink like this was some inside joke I wasn't in on. I shoved the ring box into my jacket pocket and threw a few bills on the table without counting them. As I turned to leave, another figure caught my eye. Barb, Dolores's younger sister, was standing near the entrance, her expression unreadable. She wasn't looking at Dolores, or Brandon, or anyone else. She was looking at me. For a second, I thought she would say something. Instead, she gave a small nod, a silent acknowledgement, before stepping aside to let me pass. I didn't say a word to her either. I just pushed open the heavy doors and disappeared into the cold night. They thought I would just vanish after that I would crumble, humiliated and forgotten. Dolores thought she had broken me for good. She was wrong. Dead wrong. I had always been the dependable one. The one who showed up early, who brought flowers just because, who remembered every little thing she said even when she didn't think I was listening. Dolores liked that at first. She liked how attentive I was, how safe it felt with me. In the beginning, her smile had been real, and her laughter had been the kind that made people turn their heads. I wasn't born rich like Brandon. I didn't have a famous last name or a trust fund waiting for me. What I had was grit. I had ambition. I worked 2 jobs through college, built my own small tech company from scratch, stayed up nights coding until my eyes burned and my hands cramped. When Dolores met me, I had dreams and enough stubbornness to chase them. She said she admired that. She said she loved my drive. But dreams aren't shiny enough when someone else is offering yachts and penthouses and a shortcut to the life she thought she deserved. I should have seen it coming. The more I loved her, the more she started measuring me against a future she hadn't even earned yet. She wanted things I couldn't give her, at least not then. Private jets, designer clothes, dinners at places where the wine cost more than my monthly rent. I caught the way her eyes would wander when someone richer, smoother, better dressed, walked past us. I kept telling myself it was nothing. I kept telling myself she still loved me. The night I bought the ring, I thought it would fix everything. I thought once I put it on her finger, she'd remember the way we used to be, before the world started whispering in her ear about what she was missing. I thought love was enough. It wasn't. The look on her face when she rejected me wasn't, even cruel. It was worse. It was pity, like she was embarrassed for me. That pity turned into something else when she realized Barb had been watching. Dolores stiffened when she caught her sister's gaze. Barb didn't say a word, but her eyes said plenty. Barb had always been different. Where Dolores was sharp edges and high demands, Barb was quiet strength. She never chased attention the way her sister did. She didn't need a room to spin around her to feel alive. She saw things most people missed, and she didn't flaunt what she understood. Growing up, Dolores and Barb had been close, but that changed when Dolores started measuring everything: how much attention they got, how many gifts they received, who was praised more at family dinners. Dolores hated to lose at anything, even if the competition only existed in her own mind. And in her mind, Barb lost when it came to glamour. But Barb had won something far rarer. She had depth. I hadn't noticed it properly before. I'd been too busy chasing a woman who never intended to stay. But standing there in the freezing night, watching my breath cloud the air. I remembered the little things. How Barb would laugh quietly at the books I recommended, even if they were too serious for her taste. How she always said thank you like she really meant it. How once, when Dolores left me stranded outside a locked venue because she forgot our plans, Barb was the one who drove across town without hesitation to pick me up. She didn't make a big deal out of it. She just showed up. Now, standing there alone, I realized I had been showing up for the wrong person all along. The wind cut through my jacket as I walked to my car, but I didn't feel it. I was too numb. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't need to look to know who it was. Dolores wouldn't call. She had made herself clear. It would be Brandon. Or maybe one of our mutual friends trying to check in, pretending to care while dying to know how spectacularly I had been dumped. I turned off the phone without answering. As I started the engine, headlights illuminated the sidewalk ahead. I caught a glimpse of Barb stepping out of the restaurant, her arms folded tightly against the cold. She didn't look around for a ride. She didn't call anyone. She just stood there for a long moment, her face lifted toward the stars like she was praying for something only she would understand. Without thinking, I pulled over and rolled down the window. "You need a ride?" Barb turned her head slowly. Her expression didn't change, but there was a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She hesitated, just for a heartbeat, before nodding once. I leaned over and unlocked the door. She slid into the passenger seat without a word. We didn't speak as I pulled back into traffic. The silence between us wasn't heavy. It was steady, calm, like breathing after holding your lungs full for too long. When we stopped at the first red light, she finally spoke. "You didn't deserve that." I stared ahead at the glowing traffic light. "Maybe I did," I said quietly. Barb turned to look at me, really look at me. "You didn't." I didn't have an answer for that. So I drove on and she let me. What neither of us said that night hung between us like a fragile thread, but even then, I could feel it. Something had shifted. Dolores thought she had won. She thought she had traded up. But she had no idea that, by tossing me aside, she had opened a door she could never close again. And this time, I wasn't going to chase anyone. I was going to build a life so extraordinary even the ghosts of what could have been wouldn't dare haunt me. And maybe, just maybe someone who had seen me at my lowest would be there to see me rise. I should have known Dolores wouldn't leave things alone. She never did. It started small. A few texts, a few missed calls. Nothing direct, just her name flashing on my screen late at night when she probably thought I'd be drunk enough or lonely enough to pick up. I wasn't. I had deleted her number, weeks ago. But some things you remember even when you don't want to. I didn't reply. I didn't answer. Then one evening, after a long day of meetings, I walked out of my office to find her leaning against my car. Dressed in a sleek black coat, hair perfectly curled, smile as polished as ever. Like nothing had happened. "Wayne," she said, as if we were old friends who just hadn't seen each other in a while. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, feigning vulnerability. "Can we talk?" There was a time I would have killed to hear those words from her. Now they just made my skin crawl. I looked past her, pretending to check my watch. "I'm busy." Her smile faltered just a little. "Please, just 5 minutes." I should have said no. I should have walked away. Instead, against my better judgment, I nodded once and unlocked the car. We sat in silence for a moment, the air thick, with things neither of us wanted to say. Finally, Dolores broke first. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I thought I needed more. But all I really needed was you." I turned my head slowly to look at her. Her eyes shimmered under the parking lot lights, glassy with fake regret. I didn't buy it for a second. "And Brandon?" I asked. A shadow crossed her face. She bit her lip, playing the part of the remorseful ex perfectly. "It didn't mean anything." It was just distraction. I wasn't thinking straight. I almost laughed. Distraction. That was what I had been reduced to in her mind. A fallback option, a consolation prize. You thought I'd wait for you to figure it out, I said quietly. You thought I'd still be standing here when you got tired of chasing better things. Dolores reached out, her fingers brushing mine. I know I don't deserve it, but can we start over? Before I could respond, I saw movement from the corner of my eye. Barb. She was standing near the building entrance, a paper bag of takeout clutched in her hands, frozen in place. She had clearly seen everything. Dolores' hand reaching for mine, the hesitation on my face. Her eyes met mine across the distance. No anger, no accusation. Just that same steady sadness that said more than any words ever could. Dolores followed, my gaze, and saw her too. Her lips twisted into a smirk. Oh, she said sweetly. Still hanging around my sister, huh? I should have known. The way she said it made it sound cheap. Like Barb was a backup plan. Like she was just a placeholder until Dolores came crawling back. I yanked my hand away from hers. You don't get to talk about her, I said, my voice low and cold. Dolores' smile faltered again, for real this time. She opened her mouth, probably to say something else that would make everything worse, but I was already getting out of the car. Barb didn't move as I approached. She just stood there, watching, her face unreadable. I started, but she shook her head. You don't owe me an explanation, she said quietly. But I want to give you one, I said. I didn't know she'd show up. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it. She looked down at the ground, her fingers tightening around the paper bag. It's not about her showing up, she said. It's about what you do next. Those words hit harder than anything Dolores could have said. I realized then it wasn't about loyalty to Barb or even about choosing between two women. It was about who I wanted to be when someone tried to drag me back into the mud. I took a step closer to her, close enough to feel the heat radiating off her skin even in the cold night air. I'm done with the past, I said. I'm not going back to it. Ever. Barb finally looked up at me then. Really looked. And in that moment, something shifted again. Something fragile, but undeniable. Dolores called out from behind me, voice brittle with frustration. You'll regret this, Wayne! I didn't even turn around. I heard her heels clacking angrily against the pavement as she stormed off. Good. Let her go. Barb handed me the bag of takeout. Here, she said. You look like you could use it more than I do. I took it without arguing. Maybe she couldn't say what was on her mind yet, but she was still choosing to stay close. That was enough for now. As we walked side by side to my car, I knew the battle wasn't over. Dolores wasn't the kind to lose gracefully, and deep down, a part of me worried that no matter how much I tried to leave it all behind, the past wasn't finished with me yet. For days after Dolores showed up, it felt like I was walking around with a shadow at my back. No matter how much I wanted to leave, it behind pieces of my old life kept trying to claw their way back into the present. Her texts turned more desperate. She started showing up at places she knew I went. The coffee shop near my office, the gym where I trained. Once even outside my building at midnight, mascara running down her face like some twisted ghost from our past. I never answered. I never opened the door, but that didn't mean it didn't get to me. I'd wake up some mornings tangled in my sheets, heart hammering against my ribs, dreams of her apologies twisting into nightmares where I was trapped, forced to smile while everyone else laughed at how easily I had been played. I'd sit at the edge of the bed, staring at the dark window, wondering how love could turn into something so poisonous without me even noticing. And Barb. Barb was there, but not in the way I selfishly wanted her to be. She didn't throw herself at me. She didn't rush in to fill the space Dolores left behind. She stayed in my life with a quiet steadiness that made me ache. Dinner after a long day. A coffee left on my desk. A message just checking in. Nothing flashy, no demands, and maybe that was why it hurt even more. because I wanted to reach for her. I wanted to forget everything and grab onto her like she was the only real thing left in a world full of smoke and mirrors. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because somewhere deep inside, a part of me still heard Dolores' voice. You're not good enough. You're not enough. And if I reached for Barb while carrying that kind of brokenness, I would only end up hurting her too. One night, sitting in my apartment with the city lights casting long shadows across the floor, I stared at my reflection in the window. I barely recognized the man looking back. I thought I had built something for myself. I thought hard work and loyalty and good intentions were enough to make me someone worth loving. But Dolores hadn't even needed a second thought to throw all of that away. So what did that say about me? I rubbed a hand across my face. Exhaustion sinking deep into my bones. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Dolores. It was Barb. Simple message. Are you okay? I stared at it for a long time, longer than I should have. I could lie, say yes, pretend like I was fine and nothing could touch me. That's what Dolores would have expected. That's what the world always expected from people like me who weren't born with golden tickets. But with Barb, lying felt wrong. Not great, I finally typed back. Her reply came almost immediately. Come outside. Confused, I grabbed my jacket and headed downstairs. Barb was standing by the curb, a brown paper bag in one hand and a shy, almost uncertain smile on her face. I figured you hadn't eaten, she said simply, holding out the bag. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't some big, sweeping romantic moment out of a movie. It was just real, honest, and it undid something inside me. I took the bag, my fingers brushing hers, and for a second I couldn't speak. I just looked at her, trying to memorize everything about that moment. The way her hair caught the faint breeze, the way her eyes searched mine without demanding anything, the way her presence made the air feel less heavy. Thank you, I said, my voice rough. She shrugged, pretending it was no big deal. I was hungry too. I laughed, a broken, rusty sound that I hadn't heard from myself in weeks. Stay, I said before I could think better of it. Eat with me. She hesitated, then nodded. We sat on the steps outside my building, sharing food out of the same bag, passing a bottle of water back and forth. For a little while, it almost felt normal, like the world hadn't fallen apart. Like maybe, just maybe, there was a future that didn't have Dolores' name carved into it like a scar. Barb didn't push. She didn't ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. She just sat there with me, shoulder to shoulder, offering her quiet company as if it was the easiest thing in the world. Maybe that was the real reason I was so terrified, because somewhere deep inside, I already knew. Barb wasn't the distraction. She wasn't the rebound. She was the one person I couldn't afford to lose. And if I messed this up, if I let the ghosts of my past drag me down, I wouldn't just be hurting myself this time. I would break her too. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing in the cold air, feeling the way it stung my lungs like a reminder to stay awake. I couldn't afford to make the same mistake twice. Not with her. Never with her. Just when I thought. The past was finally starting to loosen its grip. It hit harder than ever. The morning started quietly enough. I was sitting in a meeting with my partners, finalizing details for the biggest contract we had ever landed. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, then again, and again. A steady stream of notifications I tried to ignore until my assistant cracked. Opened the conference room door, her face pale. "You need to see this," she said. Something in her voice made my stomach twist. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway, pulling out my phone. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. The screen was flooded with messages, links, screenshots, photos of me with Barb. Private moments, a hand brushing hers at the coffee shop, smiling at her across a dinner table, her leaning her head on my shoulder while we sat on the steps, outside my building. Someone had been following us, photographing us, and now, The images were plastered all over social media with one headline spinning like a dagger: Wayne Henderson abandons fiancée for her sister. The articles twisted every detail, making it seem like I had cheated on Dolores with Barb, that I had betrayed her publicly and shamelessly. Some of the worst posts painted Barb as a homewrecker who had stolen her sister's man for revenge. It was a total lie. But that didn't matter. Perception was everything. And just like that, the life I had been carefully rebuilding started crumbling around me. I scrolled down, dread pooling heavier with each swipe. Then I found it. The source. Dolores. She had sold the story. She had fed the media every carefully spun half-truth, every manipulated timeline, every private moment she could use against us. My chest burned with a rage so deep I could barely breathe. I knew she was bitter, but this was nuclear. My phone rang. It was Barb. I answered immediately. "Wayne," her voice was trembling. "I saw it. I'm sorry. You have nothing to apologize for," I said, cutting her off. "Nothing." "I don't want to ruin you," she whispered. "I don't want to be the reason you lose everything you worked for." "You're not," I said fiercely. "She's trying to make you think that. But she doesn't get to decide who you are." There was a long pause. "Are you sure?" she asked so quietly it broke my heart. I closed my eyes, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I've never been more sure of anything. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't going to be that simple. Dolores wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I didn't run from it. That night, I stood at the center of the storm Dolores had created. Reporters camped outside my apartment, cameras flashing in my face when I tried to leave for work. Snide articles, cruel headlines, rumors, twisting tighter every hour. People stared at me like I was the villain in a story I never agreed to be part of. Barb's number lit up my phone again and again. I answered every time. Even when I didn't have answers to give her. Even when all I could say was, "Hold on a little longer. I'll fix this." I knew where Dolores would be. Some battles are fought in private. Some you have to take public, in the same arena where you were dragged without your consent. I found her at the country club she loved so much, the place where she used to introduce me as her +1, with a smile that barely masked her shame. Now she sat with Brandon at the bar, laughing too loudly, acting like none of it mattered. Like she hadn't just tried to destroy two people's lives because she couldn't stomach being left behind. I walked straight toward her, ignoring the gasps that rippled through the room. Brandon saw me first. His smirk faded, replaced by something cautious. Like even he knew the line Dolores had crossed. She turned, her eyes widening slightly when she saw me. "Wayne," she purred, like nothing was wrong. Like we were old friends who could laugh this whole thing off. I didn't waste time. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and played the recording. Her voice filled the club, played over the speakers of every curious bystander's phone nearby. A private call she had made to Brandon 2 nights before, bragging about how she had finally taught Wayne a lesson and how stupid Barb would be when she realized she was nothing more than a pawn. The room went dead silent. Dolores's face, drained of color. "You recorded me?" she hissed, rising from her stool. "You tried to destroy me," I said calmly. "You dragged Barb's name through the dirt because you couldn't handle your own choices. You think you're the victim? You're just embarrassed you lost." A reporter shoved a mic toward Dolores's face. "Miss Simmons, is it true you orchestrated the breakup between Wayne Henderson and your sister?" Another shouted, "Did you leak false stories to the media out of jealousy?" Dolores backed up a step, stammering. Brandon slunk off toward the back. Exit, abandoning her without hesitation. Of course he would. That's what people like him did when things got messy. I didn't stay to watch her implode. I had better places to be. I left the club with a clean conscience, but that didn't mean everything was fixed. When I pulled up outside Barb's building, my heart was pounding harder than any confrontation with Dolores ever had. I had faced reporters, betrayal, public humiliation, and yet it was this moment standing at Barb's door that terrified me most, because if she had already decided I wasn't worth the trouble, No recording in the world could fix that. I knocked. For a long moment, there was nothing. I almost turned away. Then the door creaked open. Barb stood there in jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled into a messy bun, her face bare of makeup. She looked exhausted, fragile. But she didn't flinch when she saw me. She didn't smile either. I held up my phone. I can prove it wasn't us. It was her. It was always her. I know, she said quietly. I blinked. You... what? I know Dolores, Barb said. I knew she wouldn't let it go. I knew she would come after us. Then why didn't you answer earlier? I asked, my voice breaking more than I wanted it to. Barb hesitated. Then she stepped aside, letting me in. Inside, the apartment smelled like lavender and fresh laundry, a cozy, real place, nothing fake or flashy. I didn't answer, Barb said slowly, because I wasn't sure if you were staying to fight for us or just fighting because you hated losing to her. I stared at her. My whole world narrowed to the space between us. You really think I'd waste this much energy on Dolores? I said, laughing bitterly. Barb, if I'm fighting, it's because of you. She folded her arms, the guarded expression on her face softening just a little. I didn't fall for you by accident, I said. It wasn't because you were convenient or close by. I fell because every time life kicked me down, you showed up. You didn't make it about yourself, you didn't run, you just stayed. Her breath hitched, but she still didn't speak. I took another step closer. You made me believe there was still something good left in all of this, I said, my voice low. You made me want to be better, stronger, not to prove anything to Dolores, not to anyone else, just for you. For the first time in days, she smiled. A real, trembling, beautiful smile. I reached out slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away. She didn't. Her fingers slid into mine, small and steady and sure. It wasn't a grand fireworks moment. It wasn't a movie script kiss in the rain. It was two broken people choosing each other anyway, choosing to trust when trust felt impossible, choosing to believe in something bigger than the scars they carried. I pressed my forehead to hers, closing my eyes, letting the silence speak louder than words ever could. When she finally whispered, I'm scared, I whispered back, me too. But neither of us let go. The world could keep spinning. The headlines could keep screaming. We had each other, and that was enough. More than enough. The days that followed weren't easy. The world didn't magically forgive or forget. There were still whispers when Barb and I walked down the street. Still cameras that tried to catch us looking broken, desperate for another headline. But there were fewer now. The fire Dolores had set was burning itself out faster than she could feed it, and in the ashes, something new was building. I focused, on my work, harder than ever. I finalized the biggest business deal of my career, expanding my company across 3 new cities. Every article that once mocked me had to eat their words when headlines shifted. Self-made CEO Wayne Henderson doubles fortune. Amidst scandal, Wayne Henderson's success story. Betrayal couldn't break him. Each win made Dolores's claws a little duller, her screams a little quieter. But it wasn't enough. I didn't just want to survive her betrayal. I wanted her to understand that she had lost the moment she let me go. And fate, it seemed, was ready to help. An investment opportunity appeared. One that involved a company Dolores's family relied on for their wealth. I didn't even have to maneuver much. Their shares were weak, their foundation cracking after years of neglect. All I did was apply the right pressure at the right time. Within 2 months, the Simmons family's empire crumbled, properties sold off, titles stripped, connections severed. Dolores, once the queen of her little world, now stood with nothing. No fancy houses, no luxury cars. No Brandon. He disappeared the moment her money did, finding some newer, shinier prize to chase. It all unraveled faster than even I expected. When I saw her again, it wasn't in a country club. It wasn't at a lavish party. It was at an open house. She was there alone, dressed in clothes that no longer screamed designer labels, but looked borrowed or bought secondhand. Her makeup was thinner, her eyes tired, her smile brittle. She didn't notice me at first. I stood by the door, watching her weave through the crowd, her head held high like she was still trying to pretend it didn't matter. But it did. It mattered to her more than she could admit. When she finally caught sight of me, everything in her froze. For one brief second, she looked like she might crumble where she stood. Then, with a forced laugh, she straightened and made her way over. "Wayne," she said, voice too bright. "Small world, isn't it?" I looked her over once, slow and deliberate. "I guess you're right," I said. "But it's a small world when you keep shrinking in it." She flinched. For once, there was no comeback, ready on her tongue. She stood there, waiting, probably hoping for even a scrap of kindness, even a flicker of the old Wayne who would have rushed to fix her broken pieces. But that Wayne was dead. She killed him the night she told him he wasn't. Enough. I smiled politely, stepping past her toward the exit. "Take care of yourself, Dolores," I said over my shoulder. "You're going to need it." I didn't wait for her response. I walked out into the sunlight, each step lighter than the last, because true revenge isn't screaming or fighting or winning a single argument. True revenge is living so well that the people who tried to bury you have to watch you bloom, and I wasn't done blooming yet. When I got home, Barb was there, curled up on my couch with a book in her lap, wearing my sweatshirt that hung off one shoulder. She looked up when I entered, and without saying a word, she smiled. The kind of smile that made everything else disappear. I sat down beside her, pulling her close, letting the scent of her shampoo and the quiet rhythm of her breathing ground. "Me? You okay?" she asked softly. "I am now," I said. She nestled her head against my chest, her voice muffled. "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore, you know." "I know," I said, and for once I really meant it. We sat like that for a long time, no words needed. There would be other battles, other storms. Life didn't hand out perfect endings tied in neat bows, but I wasn't afraid of the storms anymore, because I knew now that real strength didn't come from fighting alone. It came from choosing the right person to stand beside. You when the world tried to tear you down. Barb shifted slightly, looking up at me with a teasing smile. "You still owe me a perfect wedding, you know." I laughed, kissing her forehead. "Not just a wedding," I whispered. "A lifetime." And this time I knew, no doubts, no second guesses. This time I was exactly enough, more than enough, for myself, for her, for the future we were building together. As I wrapped my arms around her and pulled her closer, I realized something else too. Dolores had been right about one thing. I wasn't the same man she once knew. I had become something she never could have predicted. The man her sister had always wanted. The man she could never break. The man she would spend the rest of her life regretting she lost, and I wouldn't even waste another second looking back.